Thank you all for joining our session today. Our goal in this session today and in this presentation is to walk you through a better understanding of the Zoom developer ecosystem and our Zoom Meeting SDK. Taking the confidence that you have in the Zoom core build and integrating it to your own platform. My name is Joan Surma, and I am joined here today by my colleague, Taquarian Hurd. We are both partner engineers here at Zoom, focusing on supporting our partners with onboarding and integrating with the Zoom SDK. Our purpose and our agenda and our objective for today is to, one, introduce you to the developer platform as well as the Zoom SDK, highlight some customers who are currently integrated with our Zoom SDK. Then we have Taquarian, who's going to walk us through a short demo on how to build on Zoom's marketplace, as well as show you how to configure with OAuth. And lastly, we'll share some exciting things coming up as far as our roadmaps within our SDKs. So Zoom is invested in providing developers like yourselves solutions that allow you to leverage the core Zoom technology that you have built, trusted. This is done with our developer ecosystem, which features our core developer solutions, including APIs, which is based on the standard REST architecture, SDKs, allowing the developer like yourselves to embed our Zoom solutions, app tools, which allows apps to interact with users within Zoom chat, webhooks and Websockets, which are alternatives to Zoom APIs, and which we'll discuss a little bit more as we continue this conversation. So within our Zoom ecosystem, where does the Zoom SDK fit in? We're going to dive a little bit more into that, and we're going to cover the difference between the SDKs that we do offer. But first, let's define what an SDK is. A software development kit provides an all-in-one block, similar to this image. It's a tool, there are tools that exist within a box. So the tools include a compiler, code samples, testing and analytic tools, documentations, as well as APIs. When it comes to Zoom, we offer two types of SDKs. We have our Meeting SDK and our Video SDK. With the Zoom Meeting SDK, developers can build the Zoom Meeting client into their application. This can be used in conjunction with the regular Zoom meeting, webinar, and/or APIs. You will notice that this looks and feels similar to what you've seen before with our Zoom client. On the other hand, we have our Video SDK, which is built with our Zoom technology. This means that you have access to raw video and audio from Zoom without the UI. This allows you to customize and make this application your own. The possibilities when it comes to building with our Video SDK is endless. So for information and examples for this, please stay tuned. And we have a Video SDK session within Zoomtopia. So keep an eye out for that. So thinking about a little bit more about the Zoom Meeting SDK, what makes it unique as compared to other SDKs that exist out there? Well, for one, the Zoom Meeting SDK is designed to benefit you, the developer. So we made it easy and allow it to be quickly implemented into a new and/or existing application. So this provides also natural support in multiple languages, and it's open for translation. This allows you to scale internationally. We want you to build the application, and we want you to grow your audience. As well, we have our custom UI features that allow you to tailor the meeting interface within your application. So the Meeting SDK supports native, which includes iOS, Android, Mac, and Windows. It supports web and two frameworks, Electron and Ionic. Additionally, the Web Meeting SDK includes two different types of views. This is our web component view. So our component view provides the option to display the Web Meeting SDK component onto your page. So this allows you to have flexible design. It can change from speaker view to ribbon view to gallery view. This is assuming that you've already built an HTML page and it already exists there. So this is an overlay that can be placed onto an already existing web page. Alternative to that is our client view. So our client view might look familiar because it looks similar to what our client view when you join a regular Zoom call looks like. So this takes up your whole full screen. This is a great way to have web be the main focus of your conversation and your meeting, and no distractions with anything else going on the web page. Again, we provide these solutions because we believe that more options for you as a developer, as our customer, as our partner, the more that we can see interesting use cases. And speaking of which, we already have a few customers. I mean, we have a good number of customers who've integrated with our SDKs, whether it's meeting and or video. We have first OutSchool, which is an educational platform, which is serving 900,000 users via online live video classes. OutSchool is a meeting SDK platform. So when you see this, it's the first image here. It looks very similar to what you would see in our Zoom client view. Next, we have ZConnect.io. And so this is an automated case grouping for courts. Similar to what you saw at OutSchool, it is also a meeting SDK solution. What that means is you are seeing something similar to our Zoom client with additional features. You can have polling, and you can have all the integrations that you have within Zoom client built within your application. The third one is a little different. This is TaskHuman, which is a video SDK partner. TaskHuman has taken the raw video and audio and built their own UI on top of what they already have. And so this is not going to look similar to what you've seen with our meeting SDK. This is going to be customizable. It looks different, but what is great about this is you're taking the core platform of Zoom and making it your own. And so TaskHuman has been able to successfully do this. You'll see the icons, the buttons don't look similar to what you've seen before. And what we always want to share is we're very excited to see the different use cases that our partners and customers can build. So these are just 3 examples, and we're really excited to see what you build. So diving a little bit deeper into the technologies that we do offer, we have webhooks. And Zoom utilizes webhooks as a medium to notify third-party consumer applications. So instead of making repeated calls with APIs and potentially reaching an API rate limit, webhooks provide an alternative to this. So this enables, in any application that's webhook enabled, will notify you when the data is ready rather than constantly pinging our servers. So this also provides near real-time information about specific events sent by Zoom via HTTP post request, one for each event. So event types include account events, app events, such as the authorization of your app, meeting events, and more. Webhooks can be used to collect data for such things as recording completed, participant joined, participant in waiting room, as well as meeting started and or meeting ended. So this image on the right showcases what it would look like to get started with our webhooks through Zoom. So today, Zoom webhooks are the only means for developers to subscribe and receive event data from Zoom in near real-time account. So we offer an alternative to this, and this is our Websockets. So Websockets are protocol connection alternative to webhooks. So Websockets will allow developers to make a single secured HTTP request to Zoom, and only a single connection will be kept open, where all the events will be transmitted to the event subscribing customer. This is a great solution for developers that do not want to expose the endpoint to Zoom. And when you look at this image on the right, it's a basic diagram from basically the handshake agreement all the way to the connection being closed. And as security is always top of mind for us here at Zoom, we do have authentication protocols in place, and that is done through OAuth. We have there's several types of OAuth and OAuth grant types. So I'll cover a few, and later I'll let Takoran kind of walk us through a few more. So the first that we have is our authorization code grant type. So this is basically having the confidential and public clients exchange and the authorization code to be able to allow you to get the access token. Second, we have PKCE, which is proof key for code exchange. This is an extension for authorization code flow to prevent several attacks and to be able to securely perform the OAuth exchange from public clients. Now note that because PKCE is not a replacement for client authentication, which we'll talk about here in a second, it does not allow treating a public client as a confidential client. Third, we have account credentials, which is also server to server. This is a new type for developers that they can use it with our Zoom OAuth services to facilitate OAuth authenticated requests without any end user involvement. So so we have documentation that exists on our OAuth processes, and we'll share that at the end where you can get a little bit more details. We also have the client credentials. The client credential grant type is used by clients to obtain an access token outside of the context of the user. So this is typically used for clients to access resources about themselves rather than the user's resource. And then device code. The device code grant type is used for browserless or input constrained devices in the device flow to exchange the previously obtained device code for an access token. And last but not least, we have refresh token, and the refresh token grant type is used by clients to exchange a refresh token for an access token when the access token has expired. So this allows clients to continue to have a valid access token without further interacting with the user. And with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Takorian, who's going to walk us through getting started with OAuth-enabled SDK apps. So, Takorian, over to you.
Thank you, Joan. Hello, everyone. My name is Takorian Hurd, and I'll be walking through creating an SDK app on our marketplace, configuring that SDK app to use OAuth authentication, and a simple demonstration of how to retrieve your access token using Postman. We can break this up into 4 sections. First, we'll build an OAuth-enabled SDK app on our marketplace. Next, we'll check out the different settings the app has to offer. Then we'll locally test the OAuth app from the marketplace. And finally, we'll use Postman to make some API calls using the app's OAuth credentials. Let's begin the demo and build our Zoom app. To start, you only need to sign up for a free account on zoom.us. Once you're signed up, you'll be redirected to this Zoom admin page. And to get to our marketplace, you would simply go to Advanced, App Marketplace. And you'll be brought to the Zoom Marketplace where you can start your Zoom developer journey. To create an SDK app with OAuth credentials, we'll navigate to Develop, Build App. And we would initially see the create option for apps that haven't been built yet. Since I've already created a Meetings SDK app, I'll just click View here. And as a little side note, when you click Create, you'll be given a pop-up to specify a name for your application and an option to publish your app. Publishing the app to our marketplace is optional, and this can be changed in the SDK configuration settings. The app used for this demo has publishing toggled on. All right, so now we're directed to the SDK app config page where you can give information about your app, download our SDK packages, configure and test your app, and submit a request to publish your app to our marketplace. That concludes section 1 for building the SDK app. Now let's check out the different settings of this application. Here in the Credentials tab, we can view our SDK and OAuth credentials, as well as input our redirect URLs to use for OAuth authentication. When you create an app for the first time, you will have to specify at least a company name, developer contact name, and a developer contact email to see your SDK key and secret. With publishing on, we have to specify even more information about our app. To input that info, we can navigate to the Information tab here. And here we would need to give a short description, long description, company name, developer contact name, and a developer contact email. To input that info, we can navigate to the Information tab. And here we would need to give a short description, long description, company name, developer contact name, and a developer contact email. To input that info, we can navigate to the Information tab. category, industry vertical, market segment, developer name and email. And at the bottom here, we would give a direct landing URL, which is used for adding the app from your app's landing page, and a deauthorization notification, which is a webhook used to notify you if your app is no longer active for a specific user. Let's click continue. From there, you should see your SDK key and secret, which would be used to authorize your app to use the Zoom SDK. We also have development and production OAuth credentials, which are used to authenticate your app to use in the OAuth flow for retrieving your access token. We'll be using the developer credentials for this demo. If we scroll down, we can see two required fields. First, say redirect URL. Once the user authenticates your application, they are directed to this URL with a special code as a query parameter. This code is sent back to Zoom in exchange for an access token. Second, we have the OAuth allow list. Second, we have the OAuth allow list, which is a list where you specify the URLs that Zoom should whitelist to be used for redirecting users. This can be the same as the redirect URL. Next, we have the Scopes tab, where we can manage the permissions given to the access token that can be used to make secure calls to the corresponding APIs of those permissions. This is great because admins can operate on the least privilege principle for users of their app to keep any API calls to unwanted Zoom endpoints from occurring. The default scope specified here is a permission to make an API call to retrieve a user's Zoom access token, aka the ZAC token. This is a unique user token that can be used to start meetings as a host by passing it into the join function of the Meetings SDK. Let's quickly cover the last two tabs here. These tabs are used for the purpose of publishing your app to our marketplace. In the Technical Design tab, you would specify a technical design document detailing the ins and outs of your app, including security documentation, permissions used, and code snippets if necessary. In the Submit tab, we have an option to request a publishable URL to test your app with a limited number of external users after your app is reviewed by our marketplace team. And finally, we can submit for review after providing additional information specified in orange. Before submitting, you would have to validate the domain to be used for your application, which would have to be the same domain as the URLs used in your App Credentials tab. You also have to provide initial release notes for your app and check the required checkboxes at the bottom here. From there, your app will go through a functional and security review by our marketplace team, and if approved, it will be published to our marketplace. So that was a lot, but that's only just a taste of the settings and features our apps have to offer. In later Zoom presentations, you'll get a deeper dive into many Zoom app types and features to cover all of your business needs. But for now, let's continue on to section 3 and locally test this app directly from our marketplace. To do this, let's head over to the local test tab, where we can test our OAuth authentication on our local machine with just one click. First, we would click remove here. And let's click add. And we are brought to the authorization page the user will see once they install your application. In the URL, we can see the OAuth development client ID, our URL encoded redirect URI, and also a state parameter that can be used to save the state of where that user is within your application. This page also lists all the permissions the access token will have for this user. Once we click allow, we are then redirected to the redirect URL we specified earlier with the code parameter in the URL. Let's copy this code and head over to our API test tool, Postman. So for our final section, we can finish the OAuth flow and retrieve our access token. All right, so now we're in Postman, and from here, we can make 2 API calls to retrieve our scoped access token and our ZAC token, as well as a refresh token. The first API call will be a post request using the code retrieved from the previous steps URL. So we'll assign the code query parameter, the code that we copied over from the URL. Next, we'll retrieve our OAuth client ID and client secret from the marketplace page and input that into the basic auth username and password fields under the authorization tab. So let's go to the app credentials here, get our client ID and our client secret. So now we have all the required data to retrieve our access token. So let's press send. And in the response below, we can now see our access token, a refresh token, an expiry field stating the token will expire in 1 hour, and also the scopes that this token has been granted permission. Next, we'll make an API call to retrieve the user's ZAC token using the Zoom API endpoint get users me ZAC. So let's copy our access token and head over to the second tab here. So this endpoint is common for scenarios where a user wants to host a meeting from the Zoom SDK. From here, we simply need to paste our access token into the bearer field and specify under content type, application JSON. And then from here, we can click send. And that gives us the user's ZAC token that we can pass into the join function of the SDK, which will join us into our meeting as the host. To refresh our token, we can make a post request to the OAuth token API. So let's take our refresh token here. Head over to the third tab. So for our query parameters, we just need the grant type set to refresh token and the refresh token pasted into the refresh token parameter. We will also need our client ID and client secret, which is already entered here. And to be thorough, we can set the content type to application/x www form URL encoded. And let's click send. And from here, we can see that our token has been refreshed and it's valid for another hour. So that concludes our demo of creating an SDK app and going through the basics of OAuth authentication with Zoom. Thanks for listening, and back to you, Joan.
Thank you, Takorian, for sharing that. And with that, we have some really exciting upcoming releases for our meeting SDK that we want to share with you. And so in the next couple months, we want you to be on the lookout for these features that we have in our roadmap. And the first that we want to share with you is our live transcription and event callback. So our live transcription callbacks is basically, there will be callbacks that will give you the content of Zoom live transcription, enabling you to display this when you are in custom UI mode and or the ability to store this information within your own system to edit in the future. Next, we have our live translation. So you might have seen this before with our Zoom client. So our Zoom client currently supports this, and now the SDK will also be able to support this. You're able to get transcriptions in any language of your choice, despite the language of what the others participants are speaking within the meeting. Our QoS data and QSS subscription is one that we're really excited to share with you all. So Zoom is going to supply QoS data from the client as an event listener. So you can track basically your QoS data for each participant within your meeting. As you can imagine, this can be used in so many different use cases, and something like creating a dashboard, it could be used for internal teams, such as your support teams, to be able to provide a little bit more granular data when it comes to those meeting events that were happening live within the meeting. Next, we have our transfer in progress meeting and webinar. Your end user is in a meeting or webinar. They're going to be able to transfer from wherever they are. So they could be in a client, and they can transfer over to an embedded device. So anything that's running a meeting SDK, this will be able to transfer over. What this does is it offers a fast and seamless transition and transfer to a Zoom client to a SDK device. Next, we have our immersive scenes. This is specially designed virtual backgrounds that will allow your participant within the meeting to be able to, let's say, be in a conference room or a board meeting. And again, this is similar to what we already have in the existing client view. So this gives a meeting, your meeting and your webinar, something really exciting and giving you that in-person interaction in that feel. Next, we have our raw audio in and spatial support. So raw audio in will basically allow you to raw audio into the system. And this is great for meeting SDK clients using their application for music-related solutions or speech therapy. Next, we have our broadcast host audio. So this would allow hosts to be able to broadcast via audio from the main session to the breakout sessions. This could be announcing the time left within the session or change the prompt of whatever the meeting session may be, or bring you back to the main session. So this use case could be teachers with their students announcing the session is almost over, or we're going to change up the prompt a little bit. So these are just a few of some exciting things that we have upcoming, but Zoom is constantly working on providing new and latest technology for our developers, for our customers, and our partners. So we hope that you are equally as excited about what is coming up with the Zoom SDK. And with that, I'm going to leave you with our resource page. And so here you can reach out to us regarding any questions you may have. And any questions that we may not have answered today, this will be a great place to reach out and get the steps of getting started with building your SDK application can be found here. So here we have our developer docs, we have our developer solutions on getting started, developer forum where we're building our community, and here you can post your questions, as well as our GitHub page where you can find sample codes for all of the SDKs mentioned today. And with that, we thank you so much for joining this session, and we look forward to seeing your future SDK applications. Thank you.